I can tell we're live because my nose just started itching. So give me just a moment. One day my sinuses will be normal and it'll be the only part that's normal. So, Summoning Saturdays. Welcome to Summoning Saturdays. Summoning Saturdays is sometimes Summoning Sundays, but today it is definitely Saturday. Go me. So, Summoning Saturdays means that I am channeling someone besides myself, which I guess I should say that I is a kind of fungible variable in this case. I am Felix Warren, but right now I am channeling Linc, who is my higher self. I'll put in quotations higher self just because I'm using that term because that's what people typically use whenever they talk about this sort of thing. But I really believe that Linc is my subconscious, or rather, I Linc. You know, we're pretty firm on this, or rather, I Linc. The fact that I'm Felix's subconscious. So how that plays out, what that means celestially or whatever, I couldn't really. I'm not the one to arbit that. Hmm. So let's get down to business. There's not going to be just one of me today. There's going to be several of someone, and that's okay. Yeah, it's just making sure that I was getting actually some pretty good frames. With channeling, most people assume that it's just one entity in there. Although there are definitely some cases, such as Legion in the Bible, well known, where it's very clear that there's more than one spirit inside someone's body. But those are usually considered like, gang up on some and cause a lot of chaos sort of situations. Whereas what I'm talking about here is going to be a lot more orderly. So, classic scenario would be that you want to be able to have two spirits have a conversation with each other, but you've only got one person there, and that person is you. You can actually use your body to have both of those spirits have a conversation. And it's really much to do if they already kind of know each other, they're already kind of added by adding another spirit, if that kind of normal for them. I see my connection is unstable. Well, how dare it? So, um, say you should just start with. Um, so JFK is kind of open for business. He's a spirit that anyone can pretty much channel. He's out there. He's going to be active for a very long time. A large amount of power, uh, power generating items, kind of tied to it. Also, because the U.S. presidency is tied to these buildings that constantly have like people all the time. Like there's just he's not gonna fade anytime soon. He has an eternal flame on his grave. So JFK, I really highly recommend the spirit to work with. Um, and I'm going to say that instead of thinking about him as someone who you want to know all the JFK facts from, just think of him as like Jack, which is, by the way, the name that he went by quite a lot. Like people who knew him just call him Jack quite often. So you're going to have Jack there, and he's just going to be hanging out. And who would he hang out with? Well, you've got quite a few options actually, and they're all spirits that are available to channel as well. I'm going to suggest either Marilyn Monroe or Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy is Jack's brother. He was his attorney general whenever Jack was president, and they had a like older brother, younger brother, but almost twins kind of dynamic. So they're like tossing the football to each other constantly in the actual Oval Office. That's a real thing that they had a real nuclear football. Haha. So, um, and then there's Marilyn Monroe. Anyone can channel Marilyn Monroe. She is an open source. I will go into Marilyn Monroe as her own episode sometime, actually, because she definitely deserves it, depending on who she was married to. And I find it really interesting. Everybody likes to say play what Norma Jean's last name should be instead of Monroe, when she didn't have a very good marriage with the last man she was married with before like she died. So yeah, I don't like calling her Norma Jean, but I'm using that just because I want to talk about the person who did the channeling versus the entity that was channeled, because I think that Marilyn Monroe was a channeled entity. The reason I think this is not because of some hunch I have, it's because I did some research into how Marilyn Monroe did her acting, and she's a method actress. Specifically, she learned directly from Russian teachers of the original method acting, and the original method acting involved a kind of channeling. It was a psychological model that you would learn, similar to Kabbalah, actually. And the different parts of your psyche would be in these different parts. Like basically, these different parts of your psyche would balance in a certain way that they taught in the school. And then through this balancing of your psyche, you would be able to bring up the role from some collective unconsciousness source. So Marilyn Monroe was a whole real person, but she was a whole real channeled person. So you can have her anytime. She's available. Um and uh like quite active because there's so many Marilyn Monroe impersonators for her to go be up in. So, Marilyn Monroe is available. JK is available. If you prefer Jackie Kennedy for some reason because you know a lot about her and you think that that would be a better dynamic, then go ahead because she and JFK also had a good marriage. It seemed like sometimes they might have had an open marriage, which was kind of common for that political set because they had to sort of like um they had to have arranged marriages and such to carry on their bloodlines, which one else. And the way that you have usually you channel a spirit and they're present, they're not upset, they're not going through some sort of conflict where they're very confused about what body they're in. Whenever you get channeling into the right zone, they're comfortable in the body that you're presenting to them and they have a good time. And then when it's over, and you have a clear memory of what happened instead of a bunch of chaos. So, all of these people, they're known to get along really well, especially in private whenever there's no camera eye on them. And so they're also extremely open for anyone to like work with. They're such big media figures. They're as figures in international politics. They kind of belong to everyone. They're part of history. But if you want to try someone else, go ahead. There's all kinds of spirits out there to tell. If there's a couple of spirits that you have in mind that have a rapport with each other, use those. Whatever it is that you really bond with, that should be the spirits that you're channeling. But I'm giving you that example because that's what I'm about to do. So we're gonna load in JFK first. It's pretty easy to channel JFK. Give me just a second. It's pretty easy to channel JFK. He's very available. So just know some stuff about JFK. Watch a movie that has JFK in it. JFK. Watch some JFK clips. Watch some JFK gifs on Tumblr. Read some JFK memes. It doesn't take too much. I'd say stay out of the conspiracy theories and actually read about his real life and who he really is. So, um, all right. I'm JFK. Now, haven't done this yet. This is our first time doing this when it comes to being JFK on camera and bringing in Marilyn right after me and having Link there underneath it all. So let's take it a step at a time. Also, the connection is utterly unstable for some reason, and we're a little bit tired of that. So, there's not really a lot for me to say in here yet because I'm alone. One of the reasons why we suggest that you channel several spirits at a time is because that way they can have a conversation. If there's only one of you in the room, they at least can have a rapport and you can, I think, just get more out of it than simply having one person in there who's kind of interacting with you as their subconscious and then not really able to do much of anything because the subconscious can't really converse the same way as the conscious can. For instance, Link is currently serving as my subconscious, which means that, for instance, Felix is serving as the super subconscious. So we have a lot of layers going on, but I'm the only one who's really conscious. Now we're about to bring in Marilyn, and she's going to be conscious at the same time. You could consider this to be very right brain, left brain. One of the things that you have to keep in mind whenever doing a lot of channeling is the actual structure of the brain and exactly what all of the lobes do, the difference between the left and the right, etc. A lot of the science of this changed since I'm alive, and there's some amusing conversations that go on whenever I try to actually explain this, and then I end up coming up dry. So, without further ado, Marilyn. All right, we're okay. We're okay. There. Oh, nice. All right. So I'm Marilyn, and I'm Jack. I'm Link. Let me try that again. I'm Link. I can't be very present because I'm underneath all of this right now, but I'm Link. I'm Jack. I'm Marilyn. So, one thing that you're going to notice is a difference in enunciation, and it's going to be happening if you're doing the channeling. I'm not going to talk about what you're noticing as an objective observer to this because you know what you're noticing, and this isn't a performance that's about trying to convince you of anything. This is simply a demonstration of how it happens. So one of the things I want to do is describe what's happening on my end of things. From my end of things, my enunciation being like this is simply simply a product of me being here. And this is how I talk whenever I'm Marilyn. Now, I will talk in different ways when I'm Marilyn because I'm an actress. And here's where it becomes layered. As an actress, I then act as someone else. And then we will have me underneath someone else, but underneath me is Link, and alongside me is Jack. And underneath Link is the rest of the strata of Felix. So you see just how complex this can get very quickly. And I think that's why the method acting was a very good approach for this. We're going to have to get a book for this body to read on the method acting that I did because it was fairly complex and it's a little bit hard to think back as it's a lot easier to think on what's happened recently and what's been going on in current events. Now, I want to start talking. All right. Well, what do we talk about? That was the one thing that we didn't really have planned was what we were actually going to talk about whenever we came up. We had the idea of you and me come up. Yes, and we didn't really have one moment. mostly just going to have to deal with us kind of zooming back and forth. That's not really a problem. I think that they can get a pretty good grasp of the difference between the two of us. Yes, yes, they can. So, one thing that you'll notice here is that we're still in teacher mode. And I would say that would be Link facilitating all of this. He's doing this for the purpose of everyone learning and everyone teaching. So we've been channeled, we've been summoned here, and now we're channeling through here. But it is for a purpose and intent. We're going to keep serving that purpose and that intent subconsciously. We're going to teach subconsciously. But we wouldn't necessarily even have to pick a conversation topic because, of course, we'll be teaching subconsciously. Exactly. One thing that you'll notice, you'll probably pick one side and then the other. And then over here on my side, I'll often be over here looking to your side. And then I reply, and then I'm on my side and I'm looking at your side. Now, if you gain more than two, then you don't have one side and the other. You might end up having one side, the other in the center. You might have down at corners. It just depends. Sometimes it won't even happen at all. But you have several entities present, because not just channeled entities, but every person really tries to distinguish themselves from each other whenever they are in a group. Everyone likes to define themselves so that they can be understood and distinguished as separate from everyone else that they're with. This helps reduce confusion. You see this a lot whenever you have new people meeting. Oh, I'm going to sneeze. We have a bit of a weather shift. Ugh. I almost feel dizzy from that. Well, it kind of knocked the head a little spinny. So, uh, oof. Anyway, um, recentering. All right, better. I'm not going to bring in any more because I think that just two on top of the one that we have with Link is enough for tonight to really distinguish the differences between channeled entities between us, to make it really evident what the difference is between the several of us. I will say that you will probably notice the voice change over time. As I'm doing this, I am able to access more and more of my voice and get more and more of the 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 build that I am used to from this body that does not match it. I'm having similar. Whenever I'm speaking, the body feels different than whenever you're speaking. Whenever you're speaking, the body feels broader chested. It feels like it's in a different, stiffer posture, to count for your back brace, for instance. And whenever I'm speaking, I feel just a lot more wasp wasted, to be quite honest. And a completely different posture. We have different hand gestures. I think that we might have a different cadence, although I do notice that ours is pretty similar right now, considering that we're right next to each other. I would not be surprised. Yes. Now, when it comes to keeping up something, like the person who owns the body, down there underneath it all, always needs to be taking care of the body in some way. So keep an eye on whether or not you're responding well to this experience. For instance, if you're shaking, if you're in pain, if you're feeling very weak, much weaker than you usually feel is um, noticeable, then it may be time to either change what you're doing, slow down, or stop. Slow down or stop. Now, we're not experiencing any of those things right now. That's when we're continuing. I'm going to let Link speak because he'd like to come up and say a few things. While he does that, we're going to kind of be on the shelf, as it were, for him to be able to have the room to come up. All right, this is Link. So, as you've noticed though thus far, your spirits are going to influence how you speak. They're going to influence how you act. They're going to influence your posture, what your face is like. I often notice that my hair changes whenever I shift to one spirit. My hair will actually be a little bit different than whenever I shift to another. For instance, the curls might pronounce. There might be something that kind of like sticks out in a certain way that makes it look like someone else's hairstyle more than another. All of these things, they're always very circumstantial, very coincidental, but I don't really know how else it would happen. That's just how it is. Um, but you will find that you match who it is that you are channeling in some way, and that when you switch the channel to someone else, you will match them. And it will just happen. It will be automatic and it will not be something that you have to consciously keep up. One of the things that will probably surprise you is the fact that you don't have to keep it up and it's just happening. In fact, I find that some people are sometimes apologetic and it's a little embarrassing. Please don't judge me. And that's when you channel, you speak like the person you're channeling. That's par for the course. That's what comes with it. Sometimes it will be more pronounced than others, but you will notice if you, for instance, watch a lot of video clips of JFK from his actual life, that he speaks differently at different times. Sometimes his accent is more pronounced than others. Whenever he's speaking with his friends and family casually, he sounds different than whenever he's giving a presidential speech. This is just a natural result of human social pressures. Give me just a moment. Try not to spend too much time in your channeling experience noticing everything that's going on, and instead give that consciousness, that space of consciousness, to the entity that you are channeling. Let the entity have the experience. You will be left with the memory. And whenever you have the memory, record that memory. Either discuss it, record a video where you talk about how it happened, do a vlog, um, video journal, or write it down in whatever way you prefer. Do some art. Actually, we do a lot of art to understand what it was that happened in a spiritual experience, because while drawing or painting or doing any other kind of art will often or doing any other kind of art will often have the memories come up as we do the piece, and that way the piece itself will kind of educate us on what happened. Sometimes we'll already have a good memory of what happened, but doing the art or doing whatever other type of media will give us a clearer understanding. Now, if you're video recording your channeling experience, then you get to listen back through it afterwards. And it's quite possible that whenever you listen back through it afterwards, there will be something there that you learned that's new, that you didn't, that it will basically seem like your other self is teaching you something through the video that you recorded, and other self is teaching you something through the video that you recorded, and the video that you recorded. And that's the goal. The goal of all of this is education. this is basically a learning period for humanity. I know that there's spirits who come and talk a bunch of lofty stuff and make a lot of promises and say the age of Aquarius is coming and everything will like be upended in turmoil and then there will be a new spiritual age or whatever. And I'm not here to say that because they already did that. So why would I be here to say that? It's not my job. But there are a lot of skills and abilities that humans have that are awakening on their own in this current time period in this society. And there have been previous time periods whenever humanity would have these skills awaken, and they actually had teachers or teaching materials that would tell them what to do with these skills. In this day and age, right now, those teachers and those teaching materials are not available to everyone and may not be available to anyone at all anymore. We're we being everybody over here who kind of shows up in Felix and does cool stuff. We're of the opinion that a lot of the manuals got lost to time, and it's time to write some new ones for the people who are around right now. We're doing things in a different way than anyone's done before, so it's time to just learn how to teach it anew. That's part of what this is. I've never really seen anyone talk about channeling multiple spirits at once, but I've seen several people do it. It's actually pretty common to see several spirits channeled at once in any kind of media about it. And I mean, if someone's available to channel several spirits, basically, if someone's available to channel whatever spirit shows up, then if they're going to have one spirit come in and then another spirit come in and another spirit come in, it doesn't seem to be too much of a stretch that several of them could also just come in at the same time. And I think that this day and age is actually very ready to have this conversation because what you experience whenever you channel multiple entities at once, it's very akin to a group chat. Now, I'm basically playing admin. Um, and that means that sometimes I'm going to be pretty quiet on the channel while others speak up because I'm busy playing my admin role. That's whenever you'll hear more of Jack and Marilyn. But sometimes the admin's going to join the chat as well. The admin runs the chat, so I hope they do. And usually the admin will have a lot of things to say that people wouldn't really realize unless they were in the admin role as well. So I'm gonna take a break of this. This helps me focus. And if that helps you focus, then good for you. So now, one of the things I didn't mention last time, and this is a thing that you should do when it comes to all magic, all summoning, whatever, all channeling, is after you're done, after you've done your spiritual work or your magic, you probably are going to need to eat. You definitely, if you need some sugar, um, eat some protein or eat some carbs, depending on how it is that you feel and how it is that you need to recharge. But you're going to need a recharge because when you do a lot of brain work, that burns calories, and channeling is a lot of brain work. You're you're doing a lot of data movement. So right now, they talk about how your areas of your brain go dormant or something, and you're not always using all your brain at once. Well, got all that brain free, and I could park somebody in there, right? So Jack and Marilyn are just kind of waiting around in brain lobes, doing whatever, while I'm up front using the speaking capabilities. So you've got storage capability. There's a lot of people you could be keeping in your brain. In fact, part of the theory of human personality that I've read is that every emotion is kind of its own separate personality, very much like Inside Out. Um, in Pixar's Inside Out, you have all of these different um, people who represent the different emotional centers, and whenever one emotion is up front, then you act like this, and whenever one emotion is up front, you act like this. And often those people that you act like are the they're based off of the people who were around whenever you first experienced that emotion, like an imprint. This is very present, by the way, in the eighth circuit model of consciousness. In fact, I think I just got Pixar using the eighth circuit model of consciousness. Shame on them. It's interesting they had 5 there. We had, what was it? Joy, sadness, fear. It's interesting. You probably could map that over to the eighth circuit model if you worked on it long enough. So how it feels. And if you channel Jack and Marilyn, I would love to hear your thoughts, observations, and experiences. I'm going to tell you right away that you're probably not going to have like, hey, whenever I had Marilyn over here, she like thought this. Did you think that too? Like, it's not that we're all going to have a shared experience. It's that you're going to share Marilyn's experience, which is different. It's all about her, is what I'm telling you. So let's switch over. It's all about me. Actually, put Jack in. Yeah. If I come up first the first time, it's better for me to come up first all of the times. Otherwise, it gets weird. Right? Right. So, one of the things that Jane Roberts, who taught, teaches, she's not with us very much anymore. She passed quite a while ago. One thing that Jane Roberts taught was that if you work with Seth and it's not in one of her workshops, then you didn't really work without any of her knowledge. It's a little bit weird for her, and I can understand how she would feel averse to that kind of thought. So if you tell me that you channeled Linc, I'm not going to really be able to respond to you about it because that gets a little weird for me. But if you tell me that you channeled Marilyn Monroe, she's her own person. And sure, she showed up someone else and has hear about that in the comments down below. Whereas I'm saying this as Marilyn, which is the weird part, and is very common. I mean, especially whenever circumstances are a bit adverse. For instance, the weather's pretty gnarly where we are right now in terms of stability. There's weird cloud patterns and stuff. If you have a lot of ionic behavior in the atmosphere, that really does interfere with quite a few things, depending upon the kind of psychic activity that you do. So, if I show up over there, wherever you are, that's fine. I'm Marilyn Monroe, and I'm fine showing up over there. I'm JFK. I'm fine showing up over there. It sounds so official. It is. It's very, very official. All right. So, when channeling Marilyn Monroe, and this is coming from Marilyn Monroe, a couple of things that you will want to keep in mind. Have some water nearby. Don't be surprised if you want to play an instrument or sing or bring up some music or do some acting. If you find yourself wanting to do creative things, that's very, very, very likely. Don't be surprised if you want to get up and move around quite a lot because I do have a lot of energy. I won't necessarily want or need any of the trappings that you associate with me. For instance, you don't need to wear high heels. You don't need to put on lipstick. You don't need to be blonde, whatever. None of that is required or necessary, and it doesn't really help me get any further into character. It's actually preferable so that we could act in Hollywood. You get it? It wasn't really we could act in Hollywood. You get it? It wasn't really that the Marilyn Monroe everyone saw it wasn't real. It's just that it was Marilyn Monroe putting on an act to be the Marilyn Monroe that the world wanted at the time. And it was sad that that was the Marilyn Monroe that everyone wanted at the time because there was so much more, and there is so much more. So, when channeling a spirit, there's going to be your expectations, what you think you're going to get whenever you channel that spirit. And you're going to have to let go of those expectations entirely. The channeling experience is a huge, huge journey in letting go. Letting go of your expectations of what the experience is going to be, letting go of your sense of self long enough to feel the sense of self of someone else, and then letting go of that at the end so that you can be yourself again. It's a lot more letting go than it ever is pulling in. In fact, I think that channeling and summoning, a lot of the verbs always focus on bringing something in or pulling it in or whatnot, but really, you're letting go. It's like taking a bunch of threads that you were grabbing with your hands all the time and just letting your hands go and letting those threads fall out and spread out throughout the space around you. And you find that as you let go, you are bigger and you're cast yourself out to all areas of consciousness. As you cast out to all areas of consciousness, you will find parts of yourself, areas of yourself that you've never touched before, vast wells of consciousness that are free for the taking. No one else is drawing from them. And they are there because they are yours. And you can draw from those at any time. With all of these vast pools that you can draw, the pressure is there when one channel of that pressure. You have to let go of the expectation of having a certain experience. That expectation isn't going to, which will be more complete than anything you could have imagined beforehand. So it isn't just a case of try to have an open mind. It's try to be an open mind, not empty. You are still there. You're always there. That is one of the tricks, is that you're always there and you're everywhere. Because you're always there and you're everywhere, you can also be me at the same time. You are there and you have expanded so much because you have let go so much that I am also there and we are the same. That is how it works. Now, when you are through, you'll want to kind of reel it all in. Pick those threads up again and just pull. They're not going to tangle. It's all your consciousness. It sorts itself all out. They talk about unbroken silver threads and all that, but the threads never tangle because they're just simply you. Threads never tangle because they're just simply you. Do that until you consciousness in and narrowed its scope to the scope that you usually have all your life, where you are you and only you and focused on you all the time. I'm going to let Jack talk now. I get to talk now. I need a drink. I'm going to talk about alcohol. So, we do have this. which is an entirely different substance and not like alcohol at all. And I'm going to acknowledge that this is here, but I'm going to let you know that what I'm going to talk about next is going to be very alcohol specific. Any other kinds of substances or drugs, they have their own rules. This is on alcohol. So, one of the biggest things about alcohol is your body has its own rules about alcohol. You must know your body's rules on alcohol. This is very important. I am speaking as someone who is well known for drinking because everyone in the 60s was well known for drinking. 50s and 60s, you would have your party cocktails, your party drinks, your parties on yachts, and there would be alcohol everywhere. And I, in the 50s and 60s, had a cis male, very athletic, highly trained, purposefully bred, thoroughbred racehorse of a body because I was JFK. I'm very used to taking a shot of whiskey over there as JFK. I can't do that in this body. This is one place where spirits will often get it wrong and you will have to reel it in for them. You have to set the rules for your body before you channel spirits. Felix has done this a long time ago. That's one of the reasons why we didn't even really mention that we were doing it. Sometimes channel, and some of these lessons are teaching Felix what it is that he does whenever he channels by having him teach about channeling. There's really no other way to do it. So, alcohol. The thing about alcohol is that it's used very, very often in interactions, and therefore you will see it used a lot whenever people are summoning or channeling spirits or gods or deities. It's often used as an offering to deities, and so it makes sense it would be used quite a lot around spirits. Spirits for spirits. That's not a coincidence. Here's the thing, though. If you know you're a 2-drink drunk, absolutely do not go over your limit while channeling a spirit. That spirit will probably tell you that they can handle more, and that while they're in you, you'll be able to handle more. The problem is, it's not worth the risk. I'll talk about a few things here to go wrong. One thing is, yes, the spirit can adjust your metabolism to burn off the alcohol faster, or to be able to handle the alcohol, or they can use all sorts of things that the human body can do when it comes to energy work and healing work to help you handle that alcohol. While they're there, they can only do that while they're there. They're not going to be there for the rest of the night. Whenever you digest alcohol, you digest it for the rest of the night. All the chemicals that it leaves behind, they're still in your body. You can't just pee it out in it. The harder it's going to be to just take that. Whenever you're summoning or channeling, you can often feel like you're 16 again, or you're 21 again, or if you are 16 or 21, then I won't feel any different. Handle yourself with care and you'll last a little longer. I often joke in this body that if I had lasted longer in life, I probably just would have ended up in a wheelchair anyway, in some accident or another, or I would have just ended up with a terrible health condition from all the alcohol and all the ignored health conditions that I was suppressing at the time. So I like to bring people's awareness to the issue of health whenever I can talk to them about this. With alcohol and with every other thing, with food especially, Many spirits will want to try to gorge, and you'll have to keep them from doing that. They will find food that they haven't been able to eat in a very long time, or for instance, you might be at a restaurant, or you might be able they might be in your pantry, and they see all of these different foods that they've never had access to for some reason, or they just really pace themselves, and you'll end up with just a stomach full of too much food. They're not going to know what your limits are because they're used to the body they came from. And for some of them, they're kind of co-aware of the body that they are still coming from. For instance, I, JFK, have not actually felt like I'm in a dead body at the same time. I don't feel like I'm in my grave over in Arlington National Cemetery with the eternal flame, although it's very nice that it's there. I feel like I'm walking around alive in the White House. I might be playing tennis. I feel like I'm actually alive somewhere else at the same time as this. So most of the people that you channel, they're going to be alive somewhere else at the same time. Part of the reason why you're getting someone to channel is because they have a brain to be coming in from. So they can have the thoughts and memories and such that are them, and the personality centers that are them, all the chemistry that is them. They exist somewhere in space and time, and they will always exist somewhere in space and time. I'm dead in 2022, but it doesn't matter because time is an illusion. I'm alive up until a certain point in 1963. And then it all falls apart. Just a moment. So, because I'm coming in from that body over there, which is so used to constantly having cocktails. In fact, I was in constant pain from a terrible back problem and some other health problems. So, constantly sipping um meant that the pain pretty much numbed out. We didn't It was either that or take a headache powder or a pain powder. Uh, Medications right now for pain are much different than they were back then and much more readily available. So there's not a lot of reason to drink as there was back then. Not something that's really discussed a lot is the fact that one of the reasons why all those alcohols were available at that time is because it was better than not having anything at all. But now there's plenty of things to have that could treat those things. So now the alcohols just exist for I don't really know why. Mostly for capitalism's sake, I'm sure. For capitalism's sake. So when you're channeling, it is a good idea to eat or to drink or whatever, but you will probably find that if say you have a giant meal while you're channeling a spirit, that spirit may actually not be there by the end of your meal. If you have too heavy of a meal, it can actually be difficult to actually tap into the realm of the spirit. You're essentially so heavy and your experience is so weighted down by all that digestion that your body is just going to be completely focused on what's going on inside. It's no longer going to be tuning into the radio signal. It's like the opposite of channeling, sort of um, channeling your own digestive system and to be with it for a while. And I'm not saying that's not a bad experience, or I'm not saying that that's a bad experience. I'm just saying that if you try to do that while you have a spirit in you, you'll find that the spirit's really no longer there. So you're going to have to be the one underneath it all who keeps these things from happening. And that sounds like it's a big deal, but it's not really. It's something that will be very easy to do as soon as you're conscious of the fact that you need to do it. Part of the way that consciousness works is that we constantly write these rules in our heads as we are living day-to-day existence. And so every moment that you experience in consciousness, you're adding new rules, you're adding new amendments, you're canceling new things out, you're constantly updating. So there's always room for more updates. And all those updates are going to carry with you whenever you're underneath it all, channeling another spirit. All of them are in your brain. And your brain is physically right there. You're in it with it. You're in it at the same time as all the other data. So it's all right there with you, and it always will be right there with you. The most present, up-to-date data is always going to be right next to you physically. And whatever data it is that you need to access from the past, you reach back into the past. If you can access data from the future, good for you. Reach into the future to get it. I think we're about to wrap it up. We're trying to keep these to be about an hour long, and I think that Linc wants to add a few things on top of this. And I want to play badminton, so I'm going to go do that. He's going to play badminton, so he's going to go do that. Lucky, I'm going to go do something else. Bye. Oof. That was very active. This is Linc. JFK didn't push out all the way. Do you have anything left to say? I think that you should teach the 8 circuit model for one of your things. I don't know. Are you gonna go? I guess. We are. If you find that they're lingering, um, take a deep breath from your abdomen, not from like your chest, from your abdomen, and then let it all out, not through your nose, but through your mouth, to be sure, like to really feel it happening. If you want, if you feel weird doing that, just let it all out instead. But just when you do this, you will feel every time that you breathe out like that, you'll feel something exiting your body. So if there's anything lingering that needs to go, just let out a breath like that, and it will actually help them leave. The lingering isn't necessarily bad, but I find it's going to be a distraction for most people. If you find you get like if you hear JFK from time to time in your head, congratulations, he's fun. That's a little different than like still channeling him. When you're channeling him, that means that like he still comes up and is operating your body. You don't want to be bouncing back and forth between that. Um, I can vouch that if you have JFK around you for long enough, you're going to like start getting paranoid about the Cuban Missile Crisis or something. So try to tamp it down a bit. I It was fun doing this. I haven't really been able to do this on camera before, do the channeling stuff. I've done a lot of it in private, and I've I've done a lot of work with it to be able to produce material for people, but I haven't really ever demonstrated it like this. And I haven't been able to say like, "Hey, try one with this spirit." So I'm glad that I did a lot of work with JFK and Marilyn in the last few years. Um, it's actually been some of the channeling and spirit work that I've been doing in the last few years. Specifically, has been with JFK and Marilyn, and also with Jackie and with Bobby Key, and a little bit of J. Edgar Hoover. Um, These are very publicly available spirits. it feels weird to say this, but they signed up for public service, so I do not feel bad calling upon them and channeling them, even though they are human spirits. Um, JFK especially, he like really, to serve his country. Um, and then Marilyn Monroe, I mean, she literally they everybody keeps on talking about it's like, Marilyn Monroe wasn't the real person, it was Noreen. It's like, well, then where'd Marilyn come from? And like, I am definitely going to do a full summoning Saturdays just on Marilyn Monroe in the future. Maybe that'll be the next episode. We'll see. Because she's quite cool right now. There was that biopic that came out that was based on a book that someone made up about her instead of actually her own book about herself. So I Make It Myself by Marilyn Monroe. That's her autobiography, by the way. That's totally available and has always been, and no one has made a movie out of it. Um, and believe me, I have heard it from Marilyn how ticked she is that no one's made a movie out of myself. One of the things that you will find whenever you get these spirits is that they have opinions. You will know what their opinion is. And it won't be like, asking them opinions about like, hey, do you like Death Note? It's like, no, they're gonna have opinions about stuff that they had opinions about whenever they were and are concurrently alive. So yeah, if you channel Marilyn, you're going to have so much fun and you're going to hear some opinions. If you channel JFK, I know he talked a lot about the alcohol. I specifically caution you, if you channel JFK, um, make sure he knows how many drinks you're supposed to have, because if you have any alcohol available, he will get into it. It's automatic for him. The Mad Men show where they have like people were like smoking all the time. I think they're also having cocktails all the time. That's how it was. They were drinking just very uh alcohol is normalized kind of time. And before then too, they had like, alcohol not being so much of a go-to, um like that's kind of recent. It was a lot more normalized back then. So um you'll you might need to kind of flap his hand a little bit, keep him out of your liquor cabinet. Keep JFK out of your liquor cabinet is the biggest tip that I can give you for summoning spirits. This has been Summoning Saturdays. Thank you for being here, and see you next week on Saturday. Later.